Okay, so have you ever looked at two different industries and just wondered, why does one seem to be an absolute gold mine while another is just a constant, brutal fight for survival? Well, the answer is often hiding in plain sight, and there's a powerful tool that lets you see it, kind of like an X-ray for an entire industry. Let's dive in.
And to get us started, let's chew on a puzzle. The airline industry. It's huge, it's essential, we all need it. So why is it so notoriously difficult to make any real money in? This question drove strategists crazy for years, but the answer is all about understanding the hidden forces at play. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll see exactly why.
To crack that puzzle, we need a new way to decode what competition even is. And I'm not just talking about looking at the other companies you're up against. I'm talking about seeing the entire system, the whole structure that decides who wins, who loses, and where all the profit actually ends up. And this new lens, it came to us back in 1979 from a young Harvard professor named Michael Porter. Now, his big idea sounds simple enough. Strategy is all about coping with competition. But, and this is the key, his breakthrough was to totally redefine what competition really means. He argued that we were all looking at it way too narrowly, and he gave the business world a completely new map of the battlefield.
See, before Porter, a really common tool was the good old SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's fine, it's useful, but that opportunities and threats part, it could be pretty fuzzy, right? Porter's 5 forces was a direct answer to that vagueness. It forced a major shift in focus, away from just looking inside your own company, to analyzing the external industry structure itself. It gave us a rigorous, specific framework all grounded in real economics.
So what are these 5 forces? Well, you can think of them as the hidden rules of the game, the underlying physics that determine how profitable an industry can be. And honestly, once you learn to see them, you can't unsee them. Let's break them down one by one.
What made Porter's idea so brilliant was that he mapped competition across 2 different dimensions. First, you've got the horizontal competition we all know and think about, your direct rivals, brand new companies jumping in, and substitute products. But then there's the vertical pressure, the power that your suppliers and your buyers have over you. You have to understand both to see the full picture.
Okay, force number 1 is the one everybody thinks of first, competitive rivalry. This is your classic head-to-head slugfest. Coke versus Pepsi, Ford versus GM. It's the fight for customers and market share among the companies that are already in the ring.
And boom, right away we start to see the answer to our airline puzzle. Rivalry gets super intense when you have lots of competitors and the products are basically the same. But for airlines, the real killers are the high fixed costs and the high exit barriers. Think about it, they've sunk billions into planes and staff. That creates this huge temptation to just slash prices to get anyone in those seats. It's also crazy expensive to just up and leave the industry, which traps them in these brutal price wars.
All right, next up, the threat of new entrants. This force is all about how easy or hard it is for a brand new company to just show up and start competing with you. It's all about the barriers to entry, kind of like the moat and walls protecting the companies already inside the castle. Now, for the airlines, this force actually seems to work in their favor. The absolutely astronomical amount of money you need just to buy planes creates a massive barrier to entry. This protects them from a constant flood of new competitors. So, this should be good news for them, right? Well, as we're about to see, having just one weak force isn't enough to make an industry profitable. Now, this next one is a really crucial distinction. A substitute is not a direct competitor. It's a completely different way of meeting the same basic need. So Pepsi isn't a substitute for Coke, it's a rival. But a Zoom call can be a substitute for a business trip, and taking the train can definitely be a substitute for a short flight.
This threat gets really strong when the substitutes offer a great deal for the price and it's easy for customers to switch. Just think about a trip from New York to Washington, D.C. If the airlines jack up their prices too much, the train starts to look like a fantastic, easy alternative. That simple choice for the customer puts a hard ceiling on what the airlines can charge on that route.
Okay, let's pivot to those vertical forces, starting with the power of buyers. This is all about the ability of your customers to push you around, to demand lower prices, better service, and basically play you and your rivals against each other to get the best deal.
And this is another absolutely crushing force for the airlines. Since flights are pretty much seen as a commodity, it's easy for us to switch. But the real game changer? Information. Websites like Kayak or Expedia give every single one of us the power to compare every single price in seconds. That total transparency shoves the airlines into a brutal race to the bottom on price.
And finally, the last force, the other side of that vertical coin, the bargaining power of suppliers. These are the companies you buy your essential stuff from. If your suppliers are powerful, they can jack up their prices or demand better terms and basically suck up all the profit you thought you were going to make.
You really feel this force when you're dependent on just a handful of suppliers. For airlines, what are the key inputs? Well, planes and labor. The people who make the planes? It's pretty much a duopoly. Boeing and Airbus. And on top of that, you have powerful labor unions, which act as very strong suppliers of labor. When you get squeezed like that from both ends, there isn't much profit left in the middle.
So let's put it all together. You have intense rivalry, incredibly powerful buyers, powerful suppliers, and viable substitutes. For the airline industry, it's just a perfect storm. The 5 forces analysis shows us that the very structure of the industry is what makes it so tough. And the reason this framework is so powerful is that it's not just theory. It's a practical tool you can use to understand any industry, including your own. And using this isn't just some academic thing you do once, it's a process. You start by carefully defining your industry, you map out all the players, and then you really dig in and assess the strength of each of these 5 forces. But the real goal, the most important step of all, is number 6, going from just analyzing to taking action, to find the 1 or 2 forces you might actually have the power to change in your favor. Now look, this framework is over 40 years old, so it is absolutely essential that we look at it with a modern eye. It is an incredibly powerful tool for understanding the structure of an industry, but it is not some ironclad rule that applies perfectly to every single situation.
And that brings us to the big, critical question. How well does a model that was born in 1979 really hold up in today's world of crazy fast technology, digital platforms, and complex global supply chains?
And, the critics have some good points. The model can feel a bit static, a bit rigid, especially in the fast-moving world of tech. Its intense focus on rivalry can also mean it overlooks the massive value of strategic partnerships. And its assumption of clear industry lines, well, that feels pretty outdated when you have a company like Apple competing in hardware, software, and services all at the same time.
All of these critiques have led a lot of modern strategists to ask a really interesting question. Is the model missing something? Is there maybe a 6th force?
Well, the most popular candidate for that 6th force is the idea of complementers. These are other businesses whose products actually make your product more valuable. The classic example is apps for a smartphone. The more amazing apps there are in the App Store, the more valuable an iPhone becomes, right? Now, Porter himself saw these as important factors that influence the other 5 forces. But a lot of people today argue they are a powerful force in their own right, shaping competition through collaboration, not just conflict.
So, there you have it. We've cracked the airline puzzle, and we've explored a tool that can totally change how you see the business world. But the real value? That comes when you apply it yourself. So now, think about your own job, your own industry. What are the hidden forces that are really shaping your world? Who actually holds the power? And the most important question of all, which one of those forces can you change? Now that is strategy.